President Trump has been suggesting that Democrats are more interested in using the ongoing shutdown as a political issue headed into the 2020 presidential elections. So, Kennedy, just what you're saying, we'll dig deeper now. Doing all of that rather than compromising to reach a solution that would benefit the American people. The president tweeted, "It is becoming more and more obvious that the radical Democrats are a party of open borders and crime. They want nothing to do with major humanitarian crisis on our southern border, hashtag 2020, exclamation point." None of the Democratic candidates who have announced exploratory committees for 2020 support funding for border wall construction, at least not that we know of on the record. And that's all we can report is what we know on the record. Instead, some of them argue for other measures like hiring more immigration judges and Border Patrol agents and investing in enhanced monitoring technology. So, you know, Sean, this is kind of where the rub begins, because even in simplistic ways, we can find out what the numbers look like with the Border Patrol, and those numbers include job vacancies north of 2,000 positions right now. The retention program is anemic. You've got Border Patrol agents who've told me they've had to pay for some of their own moves when they're reassigned. That means they may want to work at a different agency rather than Border Patrol. It gets a little complicated. The academy trying to make up the difference right now. So it's disingenuous for Democrats to completely just continue calling for more people only. They know, as Kennedy pointed out, that the wall works in some places.
Sure, absolutely. There's parts of this, of our 2,000-mile border, around 700 miles, that we have a border or a fence, okay? There are parts that we don't, and the parts that we do, some of it's dilapidated or easily, it's porous. I think that the issue isn't it's a one or the other. It's an all of the above. You do need more agents. You do need more drones. You need better technology. But you need a wall in certain places where you can't necessarily have a ton of agents maybe standing at one point. This is a false fight. In 2013, 54 Democrats voted for $46 billion and a ton of wall and fencing. To suggest now that this is a moral argument that they've been opposed to for a long time flies in the face of what so many of those folks voted for just a few years ago.
Yeah, and if you're a Democrat, by the way, back in 2006 and 12 when they were allocating some of the fundings, aren't you feeling today, maybe, Leslie, a little offended that the current Democrats are calling into question the judgment that you made as leadership? I mean, it causes, I would think, some internal fighting. And I want to ask you about the internal fight that's going on in your party. How much pressure does Nancy Pelosi have on her right now to capitulate to the far left side that says, not even a penny, not even a dollar? Elizabeth Warren, we won't build your stupid wall.
Well, some of that is rhetoric, because obviously both Democrats...
Okay, but it comes with pressure.
Right, but both Democrats...
She doesn't have to repeat it. She could come up with her own.
True, but both Democrats and Republicans have already agreed, here, $1.3 billion to address, as Steny Hoyer had said, fencing that does work in some areas, that needs to be repaired. And
can we just call it all of the above? I liked that. All of the above.
Well, all of the above. All of the above is what I believe my party wants, and the majority of my party wants. When you say is there pressure,
they say not a dollar.
When you say is there pressure on the speaker,
what are the dollars for? That's a great question. So when Nancy Pelosi says nope, not a dollar,
not a dollar,
not a penny,
then what are the dollars for? Their
status.
They love spending taxpayer money. They're addicted to it. They want to take as much money as they possibly can, and they want to smother any economic growth with all of these porky projects.
Because the 700 to not
agencies in construction and shovel-ready jobs.
Or is it oppositional to the president at all costs? And when does that cost become depressing the American people at this point? And I don't mean their psychology. I mean what they're going through right now. Is that what this is? Because if they already have allocated money, Democrats, and if they're not too different from their past, from their predecessors in ideology, if all of that is the case, because that's what some have argued, then why not come to the table at this point as people are suffering? Front page of the New York Times, people in line to get help.
Because we're not seeing both sides come to the table. I mean, really, if you look at it, the president could change his tomorrow.
I had Max Rose, Democrat out of New York. He said he sat at that table with the president. He felt like the president heard him. He said, I want Democrats to remember that when it's our turn, this is Max Rose, representative from New York, a newbie, a former Bronze Star military combat infantryman. okay, loves America. He said, look, my party had better realize that when it's their turn, we could be in the same situation with a different issue if we let this go on much longer. So my question to you is...
And that's true, and we've seen that,
so everybody was at the table yesterday. So who do you want at the table?
Well, I'm a Democrat, but I, like most of Americans, want Congress to work together. And quite frankly, Congress can work well together on issues like this that honestly shouldn't be a political issue. But there are many people, not just
political issue. They won't do anything on immigration.
And it shouldn't
be. Do a thing.
Many people on the left and the right, as we see in the polls, want this to be resolved, in a bipartisan manner, don't want the wall, do feel there is a crisis, but they want the most effective. I said the other day, Melissa, you liked it. It's not immoral, it's an effective, and that's the problem.
It's interesting.
We're asking a policy question to a political problem, and that's the fundamental disagreement here.
Well, I'm looking at a human problem today, right?